Hi, I'm Taylor Nikolakis with Audioholics, and in this episode, I'm going to teach you how to mask like a pro and eliminate those black bars from the movie and television programming. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And as always, please be sure to put any comments or questions below. Let's get started. We've all experienced it. We're sitting here, we're watching some television program, and boom, as soon as we put it on, we start getting black bars, either top and bottom or left and right of the program. Wouldn't it be great if we could get rid of those black bars? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that using some advanced techniques that's built into many projectors and tell you the pros and cons of how to do that on a television display. So let's get started. Let's start by looking at what an aspect ratio is to begin with. Well, an aspect ratio is really just a proportion or a formula that tells you the relationship between an image's width and height. It's made up of two numbers. The first number is the image width, and the second number is the height, and those two numbers are usually separated by a colon. So 16:9 is the ratio, where 16 is the width, 9 is the height, and that's the standard of modern day HD TVs. And what are some examples then of aspect ratios? Well, let's look at cinema first. The aspect ratio 1.85 to 1 is slightly wider than your traditional 16:9 HD TV, and what you end up getting with a 1.85 to 1 program is you get thin black bars on the top and bottom of the screen. And you'll find it really in feature films and some premium television programs. Then you have 2.39 to 1, also known as 2.4, and this is anamorphic widescreen. It's wider than a 16:9 image, and this is where you really get those black bars top and bottom of the screen. You'll find it in modern cinema productions, premium television features, and those especially that want to showcase scenery and landscape. Then there is 1.9 to 1 or 1.43 to 1, and this is really what we know as IMAX. It's the IMAX format, and it can be taller and wider than an HD TV's 16:9. So you can have black bars on the top and bottom or the left and right, and you really often see this in movies when they have certain scenes that have been filmed in IMAX. Of course, Dark Knight is a great example with that, when you see the shifting of scenes in IMAX and the scene gets nice and tall, but you end up getting black bars to the left and right. So feature films that are shot in IMAX or IMAX specific films will have this aspect ratio. Then you have the traditional 4:3 or 4:3, it's narrower than 16:9, and you get these really thick bars on the left and right of the screen. This is the standard aspect ratio for really all television programs up until the advent of modern HD TVs. Modern programs that want a vintage feel may also come in this aspect ratio, like WandaVision. So 16:9, well, that's your modern HD TV standard. So it fits the whole screen, it's one and the same, and modern television program and a good amount of internet programming, especially YouTube content, is filmed in 16:9, like this program. Then you have 2 to 1, all the way up to 2.2 to 1. So this is wider than 16:9, and you do get slight black bars on the top and bottom. And modern television programs, especially content that's been filmed for Apple TV Plus, like Foundation, Ted Lasso, For All Mankind, Lessons in Chemistry, and then some other programming like Shogun, are all filmed in a 2 to 1 or a 2.2 to 1 ratio. Then you have the legacy, or really the vintage, these old cinematography aspect ratios. So 2.76 to 1, this is obviously wider. This is the 70mm, great aspect. It's wider than 16:9. You get thick black bars top and bottom of the screen, and classics like Ben-Hur, Lawrence of Arabia, and even some modern filmmakers like one of my favorites, Christopher Nolan, and of course Quentin Tarantino, love this format as well. Then you have the Academy ratio, the 1.37 to 1, slightly wider than 4 to 3, and it's narrower than 16 by 9, so you'll get black bars to the left and right. And this is really movies that were the silent film era, and it was the standard for the early talkies when voice and audio was added to these movies. So modern filmmakers will sometimes use it as well as a vintage feel. You then also have super widescreen, which is 2.59 to 1, or all the way to 2.65 to 1, and this is the Cinerama. So it's a super widescreen format that was used to project films on a curved screen, so it's much wider than a 16 by 9. You have black bars top and bottom, and films in the 1950s will have this aspect ratios. They were really used to bring people back to the theater, and of course today you have the Cinema Dome Theater in Hollywood, California that has the aspect ratio here. And then finally we have the 2.35 to 1 all the way to 2.66 to 1. So this is a super widescreen format launched in 1953 by 20th Century Fox. So it's much wider than 16 by 9. So you will get black bars top and bottom. And this is films after 1953 that sport this aspect ratio. Well, where can I find information about what programs I'm watching and what aspect ratio they might be filmed in? The good news is there's really a ton of resources online if you want to know what programming you're watching is filmed in a certain aspect ratio. So there are several resources online, and some of these resources specialize just in movies, other in TV programs, sometimes in both. And my recommendation is, if this is important to you, just to find the site that really suits your needs best. Some use a list format, which is always handy. Others you have to click into the detail of the individual title to get this information. And others will give you full-blown technical details, including the audio formats as well. So let's take a quick example here of how IMDb handles it. So if you go into some modern programming, so I'm a Star Wars fan, of course, Bad Batch, great program. It's filmed in a 2.39 to 1 aspect ratio. So if you dig into the details and look at the technical specs of the episode, you'll be able to find that. And Star Wars Force Awakens, of course, a episode 7 that was filmed in, again, the 2.39 to 1 aspect ratio. And then I've oftentimes referenced this great blog, the videophileblog.com, and this is a great site in that it just really lists a whole host of television programming, and you can find at a glance as to what the aspect ratio is. So I use this as well myself. How do you eliminate these black bars on a television? Well, there are ways to do it, and it really is going to depend a lot on the television manufacturer. There's some commonalities that I'll talk a little bit here, but really you need to consult the user manual if this is something that's important to you, because there's not necessarily a standard that they follow. So some TVs may have this as a shortcut where you can zoom in the image. Otherwise, you have to dig deep into the menu system and you have to enable this. Oftentimes it's called zoom or full screen. Sometimes it's called stretch. Avoid stretch at all costs, however, because that takes a 4:3 image and it literally stretches it out and distorts the image. So what happens with these TV-based masking systems is they really scale the image to some degree or try to stretch it, and you clearly see an impact in video quality. How much it impacts the video quality, however, is really going to be dependent on the quality of the scaler that's built into the television and how the company chose to implement it. The big downside, and this is really a big downside, you really have no control over fine-tuning how this gets implemented. So in summary, if you're using a 16:9 television display, it doesn't matter if it's an OLED, premium, quantum dot, LED, our recommendation, get as big of a TV as you can, live with the black bars, because the TV implementation just is not that great. What about if you have a projector and you're using a projection screen? Well, the good news is you've got the gold standard. There is just no better way to create an immersive visual experience in entertainment programming than if you have a projector. And you have lots of options to choose from, some of which are pretty pricey, these first three, and others are going to be maybe even built into the projector, and that's where I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive to show you that. So the first thing that you always want to consider is, what is your screen going to look like? And that's an important question, because if you're going to go for a 16:9 projection screen, you're oftentimes at that point going to be going with what's called a fixed width. Now, what you can do with a projection screen, and this is what I'll show you because this is what I've done in my theater space, is I've chosen to go with a widescreen. So I have a 2.4 by 1 screen, and what I'm able to then do is I've chosen to do a fixed height at that point, so I can vary the width. Now, there are absolute gold standard solutions that work exceptionally well. So if this is something that's important to you, you have the means to do that, you can just go with a high-end masking system. And what a masking system does is it puts this beautiful velvet border that actually goes up and down or to the side. So you can either have a vertical or horizontal or even a 4-way masking solution that will actually come over the screen and put it exactly at the ratio for what the film programming is. Now, those systems are the gold standard, but they're also very expensive, and you need a large screen to take advantage of how that masking system is going to work best. The second option is if you want to add an anamorphic lens, which will do the stretching and then it'll undistort that image on screen. That's a great way to use all the pixels. Again, there's an investment and a cost to using an anamorphic screen, and you have to take the lens on and off. And then finally, there are some really slick high-end digital solutions, MadVR chief among them, where you can do these stretch solutions that do not distort the image and also have tone mapping and scaling and other really high-end features available. Again, these are the gold standard. There's costs associated with them. If you do have a high-end projector, however, and this is something you'd like to explore, you may have everything you need just built into the projector. So most projectors, especially those from JVC and Sony, they offer built-in masking and lens memory, so you can fine-tune, instantly program, and then at the press of a button, recall any aspect ratio you want on screen with no additional investment. Now, there are some minor drawbacks to this versus the gold standards, like, yes, you do have to use a little bit of the projector zoom, but you don't get distortion. You also will deal with, you can't create black. So therefore, if you're in a fully dark room, that'll be great. But otherwise, your black for the masking is going to be whatever the ambient light and the way that the room looks. So what do you say we take a look? I'm going to use the JVC NZ8, which is our projector of the year, and that I've had here in my home theater review environment for a few months, because the JVC just offers you some incredibly granular options. So I'm going to give you a step-by-step how-to on how you can do some masking using this or a Sony or any other projector that uses a masking solution. So check out how easy and powerful this can be. Let me show you how easy it is to set a custom mask on a JVC projector. So just press the menu on the remote control, click over to the third menu option, which is installation mode. And what I like to do here is I like to recommend you go to lens control first. And from here, you can set your focus, your zoom, your shift, all of these items. It has a built-in image pattern, so you can turn that on and then go back, for example, to zoom, and then it'll bring up the image pattern. Then you can set if you want to have the 16:9, you want a 2.4, etc. From once you set your focus, zoom, and shift, you can even then test that with an actual image, whatever content you're playing. Here I'm playing Top Gun Maverick. So once I'm done with all my lens control options, that's when I then go to mask. So it's super simple. Mask will be off by default. You just need to turn the masking on from the off position. And from there, voila, it's super easy. You just say, I want to mask or cut off how many pixels along the top, how many pixels along the bottom or the left and the right. So you can create a completely flexible custom masking solution just within the built-in controls on the JVC projector. And it's very intuitive. So you can select left, you can crop over from the left to the right, whatever it is. Once you're done, you just hit back and all of your settings have been saved. From there, you can select any additional screen settings that you want. And then finally, for the installation mode, it's automatically saved. So click on installation mode, and it's from here where you just click on name edit, and it'll bring up a keyboard, and then you can apply a custom name for all the settings that you've just done. I like to name the settings according to what the aspect ratio is. So in this case, 2.4. And this is where the JVC is a huge time saver. Once you've done some of your initial configurations, you can then copy that setting to any one of 10 memory slots. The point is not to make duplicates, but rather to save you time with some of the settings that you have. And then once you've copied something into a slot, so in this case, I'm going to copy it into slot 9 to show you, it copies the name, it copies the zoom, the aspect ratio, the masking, and then you have the ability to simply edit and fine-tune some of the controls that you've done, and then it's instantly available, as you can see here. Now, this is where it gets really great when you're then interacting with content. Sure, you can go to menu, and then you can go to the installation mode, and then you can instantaneously select any one of these aspect ratios and masking settings and have that brought up. But you can also utilize the remote control just by pressing the settings memory, and then boom, it pops up this menu. So while you're watching content, you can instantaneously switch to any other setting or aspect ratio and masking combination that you've set. I just call up that setting and voila, the projector automatically adjusts itself. Very cool, very powerful, very easy to use. And then, of course, you have some movies that switch aspect ratio throughout. So here's Top Gun Maverick. Here's the 2.39 to 1. And then voila, boom, this automatically switches to the IMAX scene. So you'll see top and bottom, you start to get some bleed over. But if I activate the mask, boom, I'm able to cut those off. I'm able to get a pristine picture, turn the mask off again, you can see the difference, turn the mask on. So a real advantage to using masking, especially when it comes to films that have multiple aspect ratios within the movie. A final point that I want to make is that any masking involves cropping of the image and therefore potentially some content, not just the black bars. Therefore, there really is an art to it at the end of the day. When it comes to televisions, remember that you're getting some scaling of the image as well as zoom, and that may lead to some artifacts, and you really have no control over how much of that crop is going to be. From my perspective, I don't like it, but give it a go. Just realize those are your limitations. Again, when it comes to projectors, that's the best case scenario if you can't afford a masking solution. Explore a projector's masking features, and if your projector doesn't have one or you're looking for a new projector, that may be a feature you want to explore in more detail as a requirement. And then 4 final points. Number 1, be sure to experiment with the best amount of masking and image cropping. And if you don't like it, adjust. It's all about what looks best to you. The second point is don't feel the need to eliminate all the black bars when maybe just reducing the size works. Remember, it's a balance. If you like seeing more of the image and less of the black bars, you have total control over that. Third, remember to anticipate sporting events and programs that may have tickers either at the bottom of the screen or scores or other things at the top. So you might need to adjust how much of the masking you're going to do in that endeavor. And then finally, set multiple profiles to anticipate different program preferences and even mixed aspect ratios. And of course, you don't have to symmetrically crop top and bottom. You can apply less cropping to the bottom, more at the top, leave more of a black bar in one area than another. Again, you have total control, and it's whatever makes the most sense and looks best to you. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this brief tutorial on how you can unleash the power of masking with your projector and projection screen. So whether you have the ability to make an investment into some of the gold standard masking solutions, or you own a projector like one of the JVCs that has all this extensive masking control built in, now you can create an immersive environment unlike any other right at your fingertip. And don't forget our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We appreciate your support. You'll get direct access to us, you can ask questions, and you can even suggest topics for future programs.